It's October, and since Halloween now occupies the whole of October for some reason, let's talk about horror and comedy because, I do both. I do comedy, I write horror, and there has always been a lot of crossover between horror and comedy. And if you can get them to blend in the right proportions, then the results are hugely entertaining. 8 seasons of Inside Number 9 can't be wrong. Let's talk about 5 great horror comedy movies. Coming in at number 5, we have the oldest movie on the list and one of my favourite movies of all time, 1973's Theatre of Blood. It's actually on my bucket list to adapt this into an outrageous rock musical. Perhaps Vincent Price's single greatest performance ever, although I say single greatest performance, he plays a lot of different characters in this. Price stars as Edward Lionheart, a venerable old Shakespearean actor who, a year after being humiliated by a bunch of snotty theatre critics and apparently committing suicide, returns from the grave to exact vengeance upon these theatre critics by murdering them all in Shakespearean ways. Now, if that sounds like the most fun idea for a movie ever, that is indeed the most fun idea for a movie ever. And Price has the absolute time of his life. The critics are the usual rogues gallery of British character actors that you always get turning up in 1970s British movies. The scary bits are genuinely scary, the funny bits are genuinely funny, and it's got the best, grossest, most imaginative horror movie death of all time. Seriously, nothing in any of the Saw movies comes close. Okay, so we'll go from the oldest movie on the list to the newest movie on the list, 2019's Ready or Not. This was fantastic. Again, perfect synthesis of slapstick humour and gross out horror. Plot-wise, it's dead simple. Samara Weaving plays a girl from humble origins who is marrying the son of a rich family. The family got all their money as board game magnates. Go with it, it's a movie. And as such have a family tradition that anybody coming into the family by marriage must play a game with the whole family the night before the wedding. And everything will be okay as long as they don't accidentally pick hide and seek. She picked hide and seek. Those of you who've seen any of the many iterations of the most dangerous game trope can probably see where this is going now. But it has a hell of a lot of fun getting there. And the ending in particular is just laugh out loud funny. Okay, second newest movie on the list is 2017's Happy Death Day. Now again, this has a lot of fun kind of inverting horror tropes. It's basically a slasher movie but Groundhog Day, but a slasher movie. Jessica Rothe, who is brilliant, plays this spoilt mean girl character, the one who's usually the first one to die in a slasher movie, who keeps being murdered by a baby-masked killer, but every time she gets murdered, her day starts over again, a la Groundhog Day. And she tries to figure out, is there any way of breaking this cycle, or is she now doomed to spend eternity getting murdered? There is a sequel in which they try and come up with a pseudo-scientific rationale for all this. I kind of hate it when they do that, but the sequel's okay, but the original is brilliant. Okay, we're going to end with a couple of inevitable entries, I guess. 2003, Shaun of the Dead. I remember going to see this when it came out and thinking, yep, this is exactly what these guys needed to do next. Because I've been a big fan of Peg and Edgar and the crowd when they were doing Spaced, and this was their first stab at the big screen, and I remember thinking, yep, they've got this absolutely right. Because it's a really good zombie movie, but it's also a really good British zombie movie. A lot of the humour just comes from its sheer Britishness. I remember it came out, I think, around the same time as Jim Carrey's Bruce Almighty. And I remember reading somewhere that it says a lot about the different kind of aspirations of British society and American society. That in Bruce Almighty, Jim Carrey is a TV weatherman who is going out with Jennifer Aniston, but we're supposed to sympathise with him as a bit of a sad sack and a loser. Whereas in Shaun of the Dead, Simon Pegg is playing a guy who's pushing 30, is still living with the same 2 guys he lived with at college, one of whom is a complete millstone around his neck and the other of whom hates him. His girlfriend's on the brink of dumping him because he has no imagination whatsoever and only ever takes her out to the one pub. And he's working in Dixon's with a bunch of 17-year-olds who all think he's this ancient twat. Now that's a loser. But it really works as a zombie movie. It kind of sticks to the unwritten George Romero rules of zombieism. And it established Simon Pegg as a movie star and Edgar Wright as a great director. Okay, last up, you knew it was coming. Let's be honest, American Werewolf in London. How can any list of great comedy horror movies not mention what is probably both the funniest and the scariest comedy horror movie ever made? This movie's got everything. It's got the wonderful soundtrack consisting of every song that ever had Moon in the title. It's got a surprisingly good central performance from David Norton, considering you kind of never heard of him again. It's got Jenny Agutter, and of course, it's got still the best werewolf transformation effects of all time. Because everything's fluid, everything's elastic, everything is literally changing shape before your very eyes, but it's all practical. It's all in camera. And it's so much the better for it. And they actually managed to close down Piccadilly Circus for about 12 hours and film scenes of total carnage bang in the middle of the busiest part of London. Don't think you could do that now. And yes, I know from a British audience's point of view, it is a bit weird that somebody who gets ripped up on the Yorkshire moors would end up in hospital in London, when considering that that's not only about a 300-mile drive, but you'd have to drive straight through about 4 cities the size of Philadelphia to get there. But let's not get worked up about that. Okay, there's 5 good ones. I'm sure you've thought of a whole bunch of others. Stick them in the comments, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please hit like and share. If you'd like to see more, please hit subscribe. And if you'd like to help me make more, please visit patreon.com/MitchBenn.